You've seen the headlines, right? Some incredible longevity breakthrough happens in a lab with mice. And you can't help but wonder, okay, so when do we get that? It's exciting for sure, but it's also really confusing when those amazing results just never seem to make it to us. Today, we're going to get into exactly why that happens. But before we start, follow this channel. We explain longevity science without shortcuts or hype.
All right, let's just get this straight from the jump. A lot of this science is absolutely real. Peptides and a whole bunch of other compounds really do extend the lifespan and health span of lab mice. That's a fact. We're not debating that.
The problem isn't the science. The problem is the giant leap of faith we take from that mouse cage all the way to our own kitchen counter. And trust me, that is a much, much bigger jump than most of us realize.
So why even start with mice in the first place? Why not just test these things on people? Well, turns out there are some very solid, very practical reasons why almost all of this groundbreaking research has to start right here.
The number one reason is just simple math: time. A mouse lives its entire life in, 2 or 3 years? That means a scientist can see the effect of something across a whole lifetime, from birth to old age, in a tiny fraction of the time it would take for a human.
And the second reason? It's all about control. In a lab, scientists can control literally every single variable: what the mice eat, the exact temperature of the room, even their genetic code. This strips away all the noise and chaos of the real world, which is perfect for seeing if one little thing has an effect. But that perfect control is also what can make the results so misleading when you try to apply them to our messy, uncontrolled lives.
And this quote just says it all. Can you imagine waiting 16 years? That's 20% of an 80-year life just to see if an experiment worked? Research would just grind to a halt. Mice give us speed, and in science, speed means discovery. So bottom line, we use them because we kinda have to.
Okay, so we need mice for speed, we need them for control. Got it. But this brings us right to the heart of the issue: the huge gap between what happens in the lab and what happens in real life. This is where all the hype meets a very different reality. It's what scientists call the translation gap. I mean, the differences between us are massive. A mouse's metabolism, for instance, runs white hot compared to ours. They process compounds in a completely different way, at a different speed. Their immune systems, how they develop cancer, it's all fundamentally distinct. So a peptide that fixes a mouse-specific problem might be totally irrelevant for us, because we're not even trying to solve the same biological puzzle.
I want to pause on this for a sec, because this is such a crucial idea. Biology doesn't scale like software. You can't just take a result from a tiny 25-gram mouse and multiply the dose for a 70-kilogram person. That ignores the incredible leap in complexity between our two systems. It just doesn't work that way.
And that's really the core truth here. The exact same molecule put into a different biological system can have a wildly different effect, or sometimes no effect at all. By the way, if you find this kind of clear, hype-free explanation useful, make sure you're following. We post updates like this consistently.
Now let's take this one step further. Let's move beyond the biological differences and talk about the difference between a tightly controlled lab study and how these peptides are actually being used by real people, right now, in the real world.
This table really just lays it all out. In the lab, a mouse gets a single, pure, precisely measured dose of one compound. Out here, you have people stacking multiple peptides from all kinds of different online sources, with zero supervision for months or even years on end. I mean, the context could not possibly be more different. Let that one sink in for a minute. What's happening out there isn't really the application of proven science. It's a massive, unsupervised public experiment. And that leads to a really critical question, one I want you to actually think about. Where is the line for you? At what point does being proactive about your health cross over into something, well, a lot more like gambling?
But, to just call it a risk is to miss the point. To understand why this is all happening, we have to talk about the human side of this whole equation. We have to talk about why people are so hopeful in the first place.
This is not about people being reckless or stupid. This is about people feeling completely let down by a healthcare system that often just waits for things to break. It's a natural response to feeling burned out, anxious about your health, and just wanting to feel some sense of control over your own body. And let's be honest, this is not a new thing. We have seen this cycle play out time and time again. Every decade seems to have its own miracle cure that promises the world, whether it was hormone replacement, mega-dosing antioxidants, or stem cell tourism. Every generation seems to think, but this time it's different.
So, if we know these shortcuts are so risky, where do we even turn? Let's talk about what the science actually tells us moves the needle on our health and longevity. The stuff that works right now, today, with no translation gap needed.
It's these 5 pillars. I know, they're not glamorous, you can't buy them in a vial, but getting quality sleep, eating real food, moving your body consistently, managing your stress, and having strong social connections, this is the most powerful and proven longevity intervention we have, period.
And this is really how we should think about all these new exciting compounds. They're not the foundation of the house. They are, at best, a potential optimization, the fancy light fixtures you add once everything else, all the really important stuff, is already built and solid. Your foundations are what decide the outcome.
So to bring it all home, the scientists aren't lying to you. But the story gets twisted and warped when it gets filtered through social media, which is designed to skip the nuance, the context, and all the important fine print. Our whole goal here is to slow that conversation down, not to shut it down. I've pinned a question below. I really want to know where you stand on this. The discussion in the comments is where the real learning happens. And if you want to stay informed without ever being sold to, go ahead and follow this channel.
So I'll just leave you with this one last thought. We know what works. We have decades of science on what truly works. But is our deep human desire for a shortcut, for an easier, faster way, just too powerful for us to ignore? Something to think about.